Hey everyone, this is Jeff Alberts,
Brian Miner,
Alberto Nunez,
Brad Loomis,
and Eric Helms.
and this is the 3D Muscle Journey podcast, where we bring you world-class coaching and evidence-based education for the natural bodybuilding community.
Greetings, gentlemen. As we record this particular episode of the 3DMJ podcast, I'm a mere days from coaching my 13U Pop Warner football team for their first game of the season. And I have to confide in you guys and our listeners, game day coaching and like the sideline coaching and being there on game day is literally one of my favorite things to do as a coach. I absolutely love calling the plays on the sidelines, interacting with the athlete. But not only with obviously this youth football team, but then also, powerlifting and bodybuilding as well. Being there on game day is one of my absolute favorite things about coaching. And so with that being said, we're going to narrow the focus of this particular podcast to bodybuilding game day coaching. And personally, the thrill that I get out of it, I'm sure that Brian and Jeff have their thrills that they get out of it as well, for strategies, et cetera, et cetera. But game day coaching, I think I'll lead it off to you, Jeff, if you wouldn't mind, because last year you were there at the Muscle Mayhem with me, coaching me, game day coaching me, which I will admit was super comforting on the athlete side, having my coach there, calling the shots, telling me when to eat, telling me how much, telling me, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, obviously I've done it many, many times. And so I didn't need my hand held, but I loved it. I loved having you there, basically within arm's reach. So tell me a little bit, about that experience, and then maybe expand upon that and talk about your strategy as your game day coaching for your athletes, whether it be on site or remotely.
I'm like you. I like being there, especially when you're working with your athletes. Like you're obviously with them every step of the way, and then to actually see them get up on stage to celebrate that process, to celebrate that journey. And that's how I look at show day, is more of a celebration of the work that you put in. It's exciting. And seeing you do it, it's easier because you were or are an advanced athlete. So you've done tons of these shows. So you kind of know more or less how it works, what to expect. And of course, we had our plan prepared, and it was pretty straightforward as far as how to execute it. So you weren't that hard to keep your nerves on the calmer side. But when you're working with someone who is, the first time, and I had the opportunity this past Saturday to do that. I had a first-time competitor, and he was the only athlete I had at the show. So I was able to give him 100% attention. My job was basically just to keep him at ease, because we all know these shows don't always go according to plan. They try to be as structured and on time as possible, but, things happen, and before a show starts, you got people, the expediters, scrambling, trying to figure out the timing. They're on their headsets. They're trying to talk to the judges, see if they're ready. They're talking to the doorman up front, make sure that's good. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes that I think as athletes, we don't really fully comprehend. And personally, I've done over 40 shows. I've had hundreds of athletes to the stage. I've been game day coaching for a while now. So it's like I can see all this going on in the moment. And it's just, in a sense, like I said, just settling athletes' nerves down. Because it's like nothing's going to ever go 100% perfect. And I think just having that expectation and communicating that's super important. But with this particular athlete, it was interesting. He did the bodybuilding first timers and he did bodybuilding novice. Well, first timers, they were up on stage first. They were starting the show out. The only problem is he was the only one in his class. So it's his very first show, very first season, First on stage, you can just see like he's just super nervous. So basically, what I was telling him was like, look, you're it. You're the one that's starting the show. So you need to bring that energy out there. Like you're setting the tone for the show. And he's looking at me like, what? I'm like, I go, it's like football,
No
you get,
pressure,
yeah,
but
Don't screw this
yeah,
up.
right. Exactly. And I was telling like Brad, you know this, like you're a football coach, right? I'm sure like if your team is kicking off, you're telling the kids, set the tone, get
yeah,
that first hit in, get
exactly
that. That's
so.
what I told him. I
Exactly
go,
so.
you're doing a kickoff right now. You're setting the tone. You got to get that big first hit. And then there's like a few other bodybuilders around that are kind of hearing me, and they're like, "Yeah, set the tone, set the tone." But it was lighthearted at the same time, and you kind of got a laugh out of it. And yeah, he went out there, and you could tell he's a little bit nervous, but he did great. His first time out there, he didn't know what to expect. There's little mistakes here and there, but he got his feet wet and came off the stage. And of course, he wants feedback, right, from his coach. And the last thing I want to do is give him negative feedback. I think oftentimes, and as coaches, and I see this a lot, is that when we give feedback, we always say what we should be working on versus like, hey, you did these things great. Now let's work on the things we need to work on. I think it should, like, sometimes we get that opposite. We say the negative, then the positive. And that's how as bodybuilders, even like you guys as bodybuilders have probably should be done this as well. You get done with the season where right away you're like, I got to work on this, got to work on that.
Uh,
You don't really celebrate what you actually accomplished. So I think even like with Ethan, my son, it's like I don't want to just point out negatives. Like I'll point out something positive first. Like, hey, you did these things great, great. And I want to give him that positive reinforcement. Like, okay, now these are the things we need to work on. Because if you start with the negative first, it can be like crushing. And I've seen this last year at Worlds with Furry. My guy Furry from Singapore got his pro card at Worlds. Um, Backstage, one of the guys, I guess from another country. Basically, his first thing he says to me is like, he needs to work on this pose. He needs to do this. Like it wasn't like, hey Jeff, congratulations, your guy got a pro card, or hey, Furry looked awesome. It was more about, hey, you need to work on these things. It's like, I get it. Like we'll eventually get there, but right now we're going to celebrate what we just accomplished. So, anyways, my athlete gets off. Basically, I did that. Said, hey, you did these things great, but these are things we need to work on now because he was going to be doing the novice division. So he was definitely more at ease once he got off the stage for the first time. But it's a long-winded way of saying I think what we're kind of doing is just trying to keep people very comfortable on game day because it is it is a stressful day for a lot of athletes.
It's a lot different than other sports too, in the sense that like you can't like underdog your way to victory on game day, you know? It's like there's only so much stuff you can do.
Yeah, this dude couldn't elbow the guy to his left or right because there was no one standing next to him.
yeah.
Just keeps taking steps forward
Yeah.
closer to the judges by himself. But yeah, it's different than other sports in the sense that all the work is more or less done up to that point. And I think when a lot of people look at bodybuilding coaching the day of, they kind of default to thinking of like, okay, carb, protein, like fluid timing. And the truth is like, that's such a small component of it. And like you could have a very suboptimal approach to like peaking those X's and O's, but if you're relaxed, like you'll probably still end up looking really good and vice versa. There's people that are very like want a granular layout is to, okay, when do I consume this? When do I consume this? Um and there's only so much we know as coaches too.
Going in,
It's
yes, going into it.
we're not pretending that we have like this secret sauce to like get you peaked perfectly every single time. And that's because so much of it does come down to just just being at ease. And I think the people anecdotally that peak the best are the ones that like they take it seriously, but they remind themselves not to take it too
100%.
seriously. And when you can do that, and like game day coaching, it's kind of the lead up, that week of. It's like the goal isn't to especially for first time competitors, the goal isn't to like accelerate through the finish line. It's like a smooth landing. We want to kind of taper everything down, put your feet up, relax, and celebrate that the hard work is done. Because there's really nothing you can do on game day, especially in natural bodybuilding, that's going to like slingshot you from last to first or anything like that. So um, it's different even from powerlifting, because powerlifting you can kind of jockey for position. There's a lot, high degree of strategy, and while there is some in bodybuilding, it's not the same. It's presenting your hard work more than anything.
I think for me, like to enhance their look, like there's a little bit you can do as far as
For sure.
manipulating some food and like sodium intake fluids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like one guy having in 26, I think it was 2016. You might remember Brad, NGA California, Ryan Huffman. In the morning, like
You made a great call on that day for my athlete
like
too. You made a great call on that
kind of
day.
just look a little on the flat side, and I wouldn't say it was a food flat, just like a sodium flat. He just looked like his muscles were full, but still didn't have no pop to him. So usually, instead of like rolling with our normal meals, I'm like, "Hey, let's get this guy a couple slices of pizza." And this is not something I do with every athlete, every show, but in this instance, I'm like, okay, I need something that has a little bit of carbs in there. It's got a decent amount of sodium in it, and I know he's going to eat it quickly because it's pizza. He hasn't had pizza in forever. So
Yeah.
couple slices of pizza, and literally 30 minutes later, I mean, he was popping. Like he ended up winning the show. But like things like that, like it's hard to do that when you're not in person though. Like I have a better feel for that when I'm there versus like when you're not there. So that's like you could do a little bit of that. A lot of times, like I think the big adjustments I'm making from an X's and O's perspective is on the posing side of things. Because I'm like in the moment, I'm in the audience, and oftentimes like the posing practice that we do, I do a lot of video calls with athletes, like one-on-one posing sessions. So a lot of the terminology that I've established with an athlete, I use that same terminology when I'm in the audience. So it's like if they're not holding their quads, for example, I'll cue them in, hey, hips. That's all I got to say is hips, and then it kind of cues them in. Another athlete we had back in the day, Luis Burgos, to get his abs to lock in, I would say cough. And he would cough, and then he would get his abs to lock in. So those like little cues help out. What I try not to do on game day in the audience, if I'm trying to get people to pose better, is to yell at them too much. Because especially this athlete for the first time on stage by himself, I didn't give him any cues. Because if I did, that just means the focal points would have been on the negative stuff that I'm telling them in the moment. So I didn't want the audience to kind of cue in on that, or the judges. So I think sometimes you have to kind of think about those things too. It's like, I know when I'm up there, I don't want people yelling at me the whole time. Shoulder, 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 like constantly yelling it. Because when I go to watch the video back, and this happened to my oldest brother back in the day, his wife was like, Roger, you need to do that, Roger, Roger. So the whole video is all you hear. So I don't want my athlete's experience to be me just like constantly in their ear. So just little subtle cues here and there. But I think, yeah, from an XSO standpoint, that's like one of the big ones is because the posing you can make differences in your placings possibly. We've seen that many times where you see a very good athlete kind of like diminish their physique and they don't place as well because of the presentation. So I think that's a big part of his show day.
Yeah, there definitely is some, and yeah, not to undervalue the benefit of things like that, because I know like Berto prepped me in 2012, and I remember sending him some photos like after prejudging, because it wasn't like live judging, so there was a morning and night, and like immediately he texted me back like, you need more water. Like I was like water flat, I think a lot of people too, if they're susceptible to nerves, first time competitors. I remember like I was peeing constantly backstage, just out of nerves.
Nerves. Yeah.
And so you have to, and then you flatten out pretty quick with that. So, and Jeff, one thing I think you and I have talked about before, but I think a lot of people overdo it on food too, the day of at times. They like, you're not going to get a ton of glycogen storage, by pounding 200 carbs backstage. You know, it's like you're just going to end up looking bloated. So I would rather see somebody come in with, you know, well hydrated, you know, full from the day before, and yeah, manage more sodium and in fluids, and just keep meals very kind of conservative.
Moderate, yeah.
Yeah.
Because usually like I said, meals is like, you know, it's very moderate amounts of food. It's more so
Mhm.
just to keep them from feeling hungry
Yeah.
more than anything. But if you have an athlete, like that's probably what I made the mistake with the dude I was talking about earlier, is probably just underfed him. So that's why we're flat
Me
in the
too.
morning
I
time.
did that much. Yeah.
But yeah, in general, like if you're like you said, Brian, if you're peaking them really well, like Friday, they're nice and full. You know, usually in the morning, yeah, you wake up water flat typically or dehydrated.
Mhm.
So it's like once you start hydrating, you get a smallish meal in there. You're like, you're okay. You look good again. You're fine. And it's amazing too, because sometimes you'll look flat, but then once you start pumping up, things come alive. And I think some people undervalue just how like that pump, like what that can
Mhm.
actually do for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't like to.
Especially if you have adequate sodium too. Like if
True.
you
Yeah.
if like if you cut water and sodium, you
Yeah.
know, like the traditional old school peaking mentality, you're in a struggle to get a pump at all, and that's not going to really apply. But um, you know, one thing I've told this story a few times, Jeff, of at Worlds in Seattle. Was that 2 years ago,
23.
2023?
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, how you had what was the situation? Because they had sometimes they line up or they weigh everybody in and then divide the classes from there, right? And then this time they just decided to go with their default cutoffs. Is that right? And so you were pushing, was it to make lightweight?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you did like a gut cut and
Yeah.
kind of restricted fluids. And
I carved
I
up on
remember,
fluids and gummy bears to
yeah.
keep the food
But
volume down to so my weight wouldn't be up
And
because
I
of
had him spitting in a cup with Hubba Bubba
yeah,
bubble gum.
yeah. But I remember
that was
like when
brutal.
you weighed in, I mean, you're a big guy, even, you know, in contest shape, like you carry muscle well. And like you looked like kind of like a shriveled up raisin, you know,
I
like
look
you were,
like just
you were,
say it, Brian. I look like shit.
it
And
was,
I felt like shit
it
too.
was a very underwhelming look for you, Jeff, but
Yeah.
it was within, it was like 2 hours after you weighed in and just got water. Like it looked like you had put on 10 pounds of muscle, like just immediately. It was
Yeah.
insane. And,
I
yeah, it
think
just goes,
it's good to talk about this story too, because I think it'll help people. Like, because I was trying to make a certain weight class,
yeah.
thinking if I got into the lightweight class, that's going to be more favorable because I'll be a big
Mhm.
lightweight, and then I give myself an opportunity to maybe crack top three. And and a part of me was like, oh, I might be able to stack up better with Dirk, maybe, because I got size, but it was counterproductive because I think even though I loaded back up after and filled out, I still don't think I probably would have looked better if I didn't do the gut cut and all that. Probably would have
Maybe.
looked fuller better. And even in the middleweight class, it's like I probably would have fared okay. And I think like some other athletes I prep to, we've done this approach. It's like, okay, let's try to make this lower weight class thing to be more favorable. And oftentimes it doesn't work out as good as maybe you're hoping for.
And it adds a layer
'Cause
of
you're
stress if
yeah,
the
100%.
athletes,
Yeah, so
yeah,
looking at hindsight now, like, I'll never do that again.
yeah.
Because 'cause I'd rather, like, go with what I usually tell my athletes and myself is, like, go for your best look regardless of the weight class. Because in the end, that's what you're truly after is your full potential. But that was brutal, though. Like, we did, fuck, that was brutal. Like, I had fruit juice for, like, what is it, like, 4 or 5 days? Like, it was just and this was low carbs at first, and then it was like, okay, now we're loading up on fruit juice and gummy bears. I'm on the airplane eating gummy bears, and then I was dehydrating. So Friday, was it Friday we did the weigh-in? So it was Thursday
Yeah,
night. I'm like cutting water,
yeah.
and then didn't drink anything on Friday. And the weigh-in was, I think the cutoff was, I don't know, remember what was it, Brad? Like
It's like
one
There's
or two in the afternoon or something like that.
160.
It was like late, like early afternoon. So I didn't
yeah, it was
drink or
like
eat
2 a.m., 2
anything.
p.m. or something.
I didn't
Yeah, I think
drink
it
or
was
eat anything.
165 if I recall correctly.
Yeah, so I didn't eat or drink anything. I didn't drink anything for, man, hours and hours and hours. I'm like, damn, this reminds me of when I was in my 20s back in the 90s when this was a normal thing to do. I'm like, this is bullshit.
Except
But
you
anyways,
except you went on stage that way.
yeah. Right, exactly, and looked terrible. And I was winning too, this was weird. But I got on the scale and the cutoff was 165, and I was like half or like almost a full pound over, 3/4 of a pound, something like that. And I just remember saying, I got off the scale. I'm like, I don't care. Whatever. I'm done. I'm just, doesn't matter. Brad's all, no, 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 no. I'm going to go to 7-Eleven. I'm going to get some Hubba Bubba and you're going to
I
spin a
remember it
cup.
so vividly.
The Hubba Bubba.
I
Yeah,
was so mad at
vividly.
him. I was mad. I was literally pissed off. I was so irritable and grumpy. Like I was so mad that like, so we went back to the hotel room. I'm spitting in a cup for about an hour, trying to pee and all that. Go back down and I barely make the weigh in. But like you said, Brian, it was like literally like once I weighed in, I guzzled a bunch of water. I had a coffee. I had a meal, but like just from the fluid alone, like, and I
It
have
was the fluid alone. It was,
I had like
it was,
I have the before and after pictures of
Yeah.
that. And it was
Yeah.
like, is that the same dude?
yeah.
Yeah, it was the same day you were in the gym. Remember, you went down to the little hotel gym and got good lighting, and
Yeah.
yeah, you were back on point again.
It was pretty wild, but the stress of that, like the stress
Yeah.
of that week, and then the stress, like I'm glad that that wasn't actually show day or game day,
Mhm.
because that would have been extremely stressful. But
Yeah.
I can look back, like when I won the Pro International, like you were saying earlier, Brian, like the stress levels of that peak and that show day, probably the most chill I've ever been on a bodybuilding stage.
Yeah.
Like I was just so like zen like the whole time. Like I remember the night before, my brother and I just watching NFL Network. We didn't talk about bodybuilding at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then on game day, I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna like, just follow the plan and just go up there and have fun. And I even prepared myself mentally that whole week that I'm not giving the power to the judges, meaning they're not going to define my success. Like if I place first, I place last, doesn't matter. I'm fulfilling potential. And I believed in that. And then on show day, that's what I did. Like I am displaying for the audience, not the judges. That was my
Mhm.
mentality. And it was probably the most calm I've ever been on stage too. Like I was
Yeah.
just thoroughly enjoying that whole process.
Mhm.
My brother was there. He was actually coaching me on like keeping me nice and calm on show day. We're just a lot of times we weren't talking about the show. It was just like we're just kind of
Mhm.
just chit chatting and stuff. So I think the
Yeah.
more calm you keep yourself, one, you're gonna have a lot more fun. But I do think that there's something to it as far as your look.
Oh, absolutely. I think, yeah, and I think in order to feel that way, like you can't just tell somebody, okay, calm down.
Calm down.
No,
Yeah, that
it's-
doesn't
Usually you
work.
say calm down, it's the opposite. What do you mean calm down?
But I think you sort of have to earn that luxury a little bit by just being prepared, putting in, getting lean enough in advance, and just knowing that you'll execute once you get up there, being comfortable with the posing. And, there can be refinements, but it's, yeah, just doing your homework and showing up. It can be a really enjoyable experience.
You guys have basically touched on like everything I wanted to cover in this podcast. So at this point, we could just call it and say, okay, thanks a lot for listening.
No, we
But-
got more story. We got more stories to tell, Brad.
But at the same time, I kind of want to organize things a little bit and kind of get everything that you guys have touched on, which is all like extremely important, and kind of categorize them in Brad's, very analytical brain. But first of all, I kind of want to back up and let's talk about peaking, right? And not specifically the week leading up to the show, because hopefully by that time, I mean, I consider the night before kind of game day. Game day kind of starts from the night before all the way until you're placed and off the stage, right? And that kind of, in my opinion, kind of goes for both powerlifting and bodybuilding. But for bodybuilding purposes, we're the night before, and we're getting a look at our athlete and making sure that we are where we want to be. We've programmed all the food for that day before, maybe not specifically at this time eat this and this time eat this and this time eat this. But by the end of the day, when I see you, I want you to get so much fat, so many carbs, so much protein, so much sodium, so much water. Everything's been executed to the letter, right? We get a look at our athlete. We all have our different ways of doing that. You guys, I'll give you the opportunity to kind of elaborate on that, whether it's remotely. Obviously, in person, it's going to be much easier. We're there. We can go to their hotel room. They can come to us. We can go to the gym and meet, whatever. Getting our eyes on our athlete. remotely. We got to get our eyes on the athlete. Brian, I'll kind of throw it back to you. You know, what are you looking for that night before to make sure that we're at least set up and in a position to be peaked the day of the show? You know, what is your go-to strategy? Is it pictures? Is it video? Is it a Zoom call?
Yeah.
Is it, you know, et cetera? And what is it that you're looking for on them? You know, are you looking for right where we want to be the next day, like perfectly peaked? Do you want them a little bit flat so they can fill up the next day? Do you want them a little bit spilled? How do you kind of go about that?
Yeah, no, I think there's a number of things you look into here, and I think a lot of it depends on kind of the athlete's response leading up to the show. Like if you see how they look coming off of refeeds, like that's one reason I think an undervalued benefit of refeeds, and you know especially late in a prep, is you can sort of see how you respond to a given carb intake and when you look your best. And
Mm-hmm.
you know I know like my last prep, it was like 4 low days, and then I would refeed 3 consecutive days. And I would always wake up. So it was like Friday through Monday, or Friday through Sunday, rather. And I'd wake up Monday and I would look spilled for sure. Um, so like a little softer, fuller, but just soft. And then it was usually like Tuesday afternoon, you know, in the gym is like when I felt like I looked my best. And so it was sort of easy to work backwards from that when planning the peak. And that's the same strategy I use for a lot of people, you know, provided they're, you know, lean enough to really see subtle differences like that, is, you know, look at upstream data and how they responded to the refeeds. But for the most part, I think kind of regardless if I have somebody, you know, front loading or back loading, it's usually, especially for first time competitors, if they don't look peaked 100% on Friday, sometimes that gives them some anxiety. And you need to be clear, like we don't want to, like we're not trying to peak for a Friday show that doesn't exist. So typically people will flatten out a little bit overnight. And so going to bed on Friday, it also depends on what time the show is the next day. You know, if they're not going to be on stage until 1 p.m., then it's like, okay, we could probably be a little bit aggressive here and, you know, we'll provide a little bit more time to sharpen up. But in general, I think for most people, Friday night, they go to bed a little slightly spilled over, knowing that we have time and overnight they're going to sharpen up a bit. But a lot of that just you need that upstream data to be able to assess that.
Do you kind of trial it before show day, Brian? Do you like to kind of
I mean,
trial what
it's
it's going to look like?
usually not like 100%, but I think the carbs, like the refeeds, like that, I follow it. If I have the luxury of doing that, I like to use like consecutive refeeds, you know, in the weeks leading up to a show. If I can, you know, if we have the benefit of doing so, you know, if they still have some fat to lose, then sometimes peaking, like the more you are trying to lose fat up until show day, the less predictable peaking can sometimes be, because you don't have that data you don't have the luxury of like, okay, let's spend half of this week seeing what this peak is going to look like, when it's like the return on investment is higher just dieting that week, you know? So it's a little bit different. But in the ideal scenario, yeah, it's not that we're trialing peak week entirely, but we have a very good idea of when they're going to look their best coming off X amount of carbs and X amount of days.
Hey 3DMJers, this is Coach Alberto Nunez here to talk about the biggest issue every serious lifter faces, and that's the issue of time. Unlike some other skill-based activities and sports that might show progress in a matter of days, strength training is a much slower biological process. The consistent long-term effort it takes to put on muscle can leave most eager athletes spinning their wheels, second-guessing themselves, switching programs every month, and generally living life with a lack of confidence in their approach. All of these common pitfalls are the exact reason why most lifters can waste years of their lives without making any meaningful progress towards their physique goals. But it's really not their fault. Even if a bodybuilder wants to be self-sufficient and tries to learn about their chosen craft, most online content is far too short to create a complete picture of what it means to live the life of a successful serious lifter. Aspiring athletes often piece together cookie-cutter programs and quick-fix strategies from various influencers only to be left in the same spot every 6 months. They don't get long-term results because they don't understand how training programs and nutrition planning actually work in the real world and how they work together. But we created the 3DMJ Vault to change that. An entire ecosystem of over 25 video courses that gel together to create a complete learning academy for bodybuilders who want a genuine understanding of the sport. We won't just teach you what to do, we'll teach you how and why you're doing it. And once you fully understand the principles, we'll teach you how to tailor a customized approach for your goals, your physique, and your lifestyle. The Vault includes all of the video lectures, training programs, and nutrition plans you need to build a solid foundation as a serious lifter. To purchase our entire library of past, present, and future courses, go to 3dmjvault.com to sign yourself up today. You can get all access to all courses with a one-time purchase of a lifetime VIP membership or a one-time purchase of a single-year VIP membership. We made the Vault to create the future 3DMJ athletes we want to coach to the stage, and it's been doing exactly that since 2018. It also continues to grow over time as we add new courses every year that are always included for VIP members in the one-time purchase price. If you're serious about your lifting career and are willing to put in the work, we're confident that the Vault is everything you need to establish a bodybuilding lifestyle that supports your physique goals as a self-guided athlete for years to come. Get all access at 3dmjvault.com today. Again, that's 3dmjvault.com. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy the rest of the show.
Jeff, I remember vividly at the Muscle Mayhem last year, you had already gone home and I was staying at the hotel, which I was totally cool with, but you wanted to see pictures of me. You said, I want to see pictures of you at this time once you have all of your food in. And I had it all done. I took a couple of shots. You remember I went to the gym, got a couple of shots there in kind of some natural light. And then I sent those over to you and you're like, we got room. I think we can push 400 grams of carbs, which I don't think I've ever taken 400 grams of carbs the night before a show, you know, but me being the coachable guy I am and still executing to this day, stuff that Jeff gave me like in 6 years ago in 2019, you know, I was like, okay, I'm getting a bagel and some raisins, you know? And, it was so comforting. And I mean, the next day, you know, we were peaked. We were perfect. And Jeff, I got to give you props because you have an eye that I don't have. Like I need to kind of see people live. Whereas you, a lot of times, you can sometimes see people you've never even seen before. And I'm just amazed. You're like, yeah, that person's a touch spilly, you know? Talk about your night before the show, you know, and talk about what's all those years of experience that, I mean, you can't even put a price tag on that. You know, what you're looking for the night before
You're
the
giving
show.
me
What's your strategy?
too much credit probably because it's
well, maybe,
still
but
with some athletes.
I've been on the other side of it too.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
being your athlete.
I think when your athlete is super lean, it's a lot easier to peak somebody. In your case, Brad, like you were pretty damn shredded. So it's kind of like easy to see like, okay, you look hella good right now, and we still have X amount of hours left here on Friday. You still have to sleep all night long, and we know like when you sleep, you're gonna get slightly dehydrated from that. So I know we didn't feed you anymore, you probably wake up super flat. And I don't want to get into a situation where it's like, okay, now I'm going to try to force food on you on show day, which may not even get digested in time to actually get into the muscle. So it's like, I'm just going to have you look probably with a food baby and feeling uncomfortable on show day because you feel bloated, you know? So it's like, okay, let me just feed you more carbs here. You still have more time to process. And, you know, in the morning time, you should look full and tight. And that's exactly what happened. And that's an art. It's more of an art. It's like I can't say like 100% with certainty that you're going to wake up looking just perfect.
Perfect, yeah.
But based off of like years of experience based off of this like theory, kind of what you learned in the trenches. You're like, okay, this is probably what the outcome's going to be. And if anything, you get more food in you, you're probably going to sleep better, you get a better, and that's important too. Like I always want my athletes to sleep as good as they can. Obviously it's very challenging night before a show. You're going to have those nerves, the jitters. You're going to be thinking about it. You're excited and all that stuff's hard to sleep. But it's harder to sleep when you're not, when you're feeling a little hungry. So it's like,
Yeah.
if I can get you, like Brian was saying, if you're a little spilly, that means you're probably well fed. You're probably going to sleep good.
Mhm.
And I like to have photos or video. It depends on, so if we're talking about athletes like online, like working with someone, around the world, it's like you got to think about what it's going to do for the athlete if you ask for pictures or video. Of course, video, you can see more things, right? We want this in 4K or 2K or whatever, like so I can see everything. But if it means this person across the world is in a hotel with shitty internet and they're trying to take a video, trying to make it all perfect for you, and then it takes like an hour to upload and all that, like think of the stress that it's causing that athlete just to get you this perfect video. So it's like sometimes like, hey, just give me a most muscular and give me a rear double bicep in your best lighting. Give me the best picture you can get and send it to me. Because it might only take them like a minute, 2 minutes to do that
Mhm.
versus an hour. So that's
Yeah.
less time dealing with the bodybuilding coach, more time getting themselves more situated in a calmer state so they can potentially beat. So I look at those things, but I want to see how they're looking with roughly 75% of their food in on the day before. And I try to get them to get that food in at a certain time, because oftentimes you're just super busy on Friday. You got tanning, weigh-ins, check-ins, whatever. I don't like my athletes training on Fridays just because of this reason. It's one more thing they got to do off a checkbox because they already got so much going on Friday. And training on Friday isn't going to make or break their look on Saturday. So I just try to keep stress levels really low on Friday. But if I can get 75% of their food in by a certain time, then I can make the adjustment. Hey, we need to eat more. We need to go more above this, what we planned. Or, hey, we're looking really good here. Like, okay, I know if we eat 100% of the food, we're probably going to spill. So, hey, we'll just stop here. So it gives me that leeway to kind of go either way. But I really try to emphasize getting them to sleep at a decent time. Because I know personally, I've ran myself ragged on a Friday and I'm gonna get in bed at midnight or something like that. I get up at 5 and I'm like hella tired because I didn't get enough sleep. So I think that's super. That's usually how my Fridays look, Brad, for most athletes.
Yeah, mine's a bit it's similar, but it's a bit different in that, like I told you, Jeff, I don't quite have the eye that you have, and I because I don't have that eye that you got, I need to see them, you know? And so I kinda go, I don't know, I don't wanna say above and beyond the call, but I literally rearrange my schedule in order to see that athlete when they've got all their food in, all their tanning is done, the polygraph is done, everything is done, and they're kind of settling in for the night in their hotel room. And just like you said, Jeff, I don't want them getting up in the middle of the night and taking me pictures. I don't want them squeezing me in pictures between their polygraph and their
Mhm.
tanning, you know? I just like them to get everything done. I want everything done, all of their food in, all of their water in, and then I have them shoot over pictures and we just meet on the Zoom call. Because one thing that's really helpful for me is to not only get a look at them, which my eye over every year, my eye gets better and better and better. I'm not to Jeff's level or Alberto's level yet,
I was gonna
but,
say you're not giving yourself enough credit.
Yeah.
it's getting I will say it's getting better. It's getting better and better every year. But just for my own peace of mind, I wanna see them. Tell me what kinda pinch the skin on the back of your hamstrings. What does it feel like back there? Is it tight? Is it tight against your skin, or do we feel a little bit of, something, in between the hamstring and the 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 biceps femoris there, sometimes the abs is a good place to kinda spill. Is it tight against your abs when you bear down and do either a hands on hips, most muscular, or an abs and thigh? What does the skin feel like there? And then like you, Jeff, and you too, Brian, I just like them a tiny bit spilled that night. I just want a tiny bit spilled. And so if the pictures look phenomenal, the skin is tight, everything is basically looking like we want to look the next day. I just give them a little bit of food. I just give them a little bit of proactive food to get them through the night. Maybe they spill it during the night. Maybe they won't. Who knows? But at least I've got the peace of mind of knowing, okay, I didn't get them quite where I wanted them looking, but we're doing something about it, you know? And then usually the next morning when they shoot me over pictures, you know, it's as expected. You know, it was kind of somewhat predictable because again, I had them, we had the plan in place. It was all executed. I got, you know, what I needed the night before by getting my eyes on them and getting that kind of, you know, verbal feedback. And so then a lot of times I feel comfortable, you know, making those kind of calls once I'm in that spot, you know, and kind of on the same page there with them. And yeah, it's kind of a pain. Like the other morning, I had a client in Singapore. I had to get up at 6 in the morning and meet with him at 6:30 because it was like 9 or 10 o'clock, you know, that night, his time. But as a coach, we care about our athletes and we want to do what we can and within what we know our strengths and our limitations are. And one of my limitations is I need to talk with them, you know, and so I got to kind of bend over backwards because I want them to succeed. I want them to present the best package on stage. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where I am, you know, and I like to trial things, you know, a lot of times I've learned the hard way. And really I got to give props to a client that I had in Germany who painstakingly tracked every bit of food that he had on the day of his show. Because how many times do we hear about our athletes? They wake up the next morning and they're like, I look phenomenal. I look so much better now the day after the show than I did the day of the show. It used to happen to me all the time, like 8, 10, 12, 15 years ago, you know? So this particular athlete, he tracked everything to the letter. I mean, every cheat little food that he had after he got off stage, he tracked it. And I could not believe, well, first of all, the amount of food that he ate. But second of all, seeing the quantifiable numbers of what it was that he ate, and then, of course, how he looked the next day, it made me realize I've been getting people on stage flat for years because I had underfed them. I was so afraid of spilling them. I was chronically getting my athletes on stage, you know, flat. And I should have, Jeff, that athlete that you were talking about before, Ryan. I had an athlete that day that was there with you that you were like, he's sodium flat. And you texted me, you're like, he looks sodium flat right now. I'm gonna send him out for some food and, you know, something that's kind of higher sodium. And I was like, go for it, Jeff. You know, you're there. I'm on my way. I'm driving, you know. That should have been a hint to me that we can feed these guys the night before, you know, feed them a lot more than I had anticipated. And it was between that experience with Jeff, and then of course this athlete did 4 shows that year, and he did that for every single show. He tracked like all 190 grams of fat, 785 grams of carbs, you know, and then sent me pictures the next day. And I was loving it. It was such an educational experience. And so for that reason, you know, I'm kind of getting off topic here of peaking the night before, but I love it when the athlete is like just peeled and we're still 3 weeks out from the show because now we get to try that out. You know, I'll have no problem just sending them out for a regular day of eating and have them track everything and let's see what happens, you know? And like, to this day, having done that now dozens of times, um, I just can't believe what I can feed them and they don't spill, you know, that they might be spilled a little bit that night, you know, because when we trial it, I'll look at them, I'll have them send me the pictures the night before, but they ain't spilled the next day, you know, and
Yeah.
it kind of tells me, well, you know what, we can get away with a little bit more on show day, you know?
I think sometimes too, like you, at the same time, I mean, this is all valid because I've had this happen to myself. The next day, you're like, oh man, I look better, you know, because you know, I had, it might not even be like the actual carbs. It could just be the fact that I went out for a burger and it was hella salty and I was
Yeah.
sodium flat.
And you were
So
calm and it was all done and there was no
yeah.
stress. Yeah, all that.
But
Yeah.
saying this, like sometimes when you wake up the next day, you think you look better. you know, because
I
you choose to look at what you want to look at. You're like, oh, my forearms, I got vein, I'm all vascular now, or hey, my shoulders look more vascular, fuller. But then maybe your abs are washed out, your quads are washed out. So I think sometimes like we have to ensure we're actually looking better or worse the next day. And it's if you don't have an eye for it, then it's like, yeah, let me outsource these pictures and let's get some feedback from that. Because I've had many athletes kind of say the same thing, and I'm like, okay, let's see how you look. I'm like, yeah, dude, you're spilt over. Because you can not be vascular on stage because everybody wants to see the veins pumping up. I want to see those veins and all that. Like I've gone out on stage and not have as much vascularity, but I look hella sharp.
Mm-hmm.
I like sharp and full. So it's like the veins aren't
The
always the best
vascularity is not a component
that's
of
not
judging
the best
criteria.
indicator to see if
and
you're peaked or not.
it's correlated to condition, but it's not like Berto's done a great job trying to illustrate this. I mean, he's naturally a pretty vascular guy, even in the off season, and when he's 12% body fat. So it's um, or higher. And so I think a lot of people they look for that like full vascular look the next day. But like you said, Jeff, it's like wherever if there is a spot that tends to be more susceptible to spilling over, like that can dramatically offset any benefit that they gained elsewhere. So but I definitely I agree with you, Brad. I think I'm probably more conservative than I need to be sometimes, especially if I haven't worked with somebody before. But it's the other thing that plays a role there, I think, too, is how aggressively they're dieting up to the show.
Yeah,
100%.
definitely.
So if you like, let's say somebody was just behind schedule and you're running just a string of low days, like let's just get them to the finish line and we'll try to peak with a backload, and there's almost sometimes like with these aggressive backloads, if somebody's not peeled, they end up like spilled and flat looking at the same time.
Same time.
And that seems counterintuitive, but it's essentially it's like your body's just not used to simulating those carbs and storing glycogen as efficiently. And so that's why I think that's a big reason why, we like to have people eat into shows or taper their food up heading into shows. Cause, whether it's a upregulation in glycogen storing ability or what, but it seems like the peaking process is much more predictable in those situations when it's like the floodgates are open, ready to soak up those carbs rather than, okay, we're depleted, but we only have, limited space to do
To
something
fit
with
it
these
in.
carbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a tank with only a couple openings versus a lot, and you're just dumping a bunch of water on it. So I think there's that benefit of eating up into the show. And I think that definitely leads to like the fullest, sharpest look you can get for most people, but it requires experience and I think more than anything, just a long timeline and just starting prep leaner than maybe they had previously.
All right, cool. So we're up to the night before the show, right? We've got that knocked out. To be honest with you guys, me on my end, if I meet with them the night before and I get them where I want them, having established I'm going to give you a little bit more food because you're looking sharper than I would like you, or hey, we're perfectly spilled right now. Let's just go to bed with a little 8-ounce glass of water and get a good night's sleep and pee all those carbohydrates out and all that glycogen that you basically ate all day. Um, but yeah, if I'm in a good spot with them the night before, I don't even really need to see them the next morning. A lot of times I do. I'll have them get up and get their meal in and get their water in and shoot me over pictures. But at that point there, my mindset is usually at peace at that point. It's like, I've got this athlete right where they need to be. We have the plan laid out for tomorrow. Now we're a little bit more meticulous, eat 6 hours out, this many carbs, this much sodium, this much water, 3.5 hours out, this much, an hour out, etc. We've got it all laid out. But a lot of times at that point there, I'm like, we're good. You just execute tomorrow. And then message me on our coaching app, on the Discord server, if you have a question about something, Because yeah, I mean, sometimes let's face it, that athlete's on stage and I'm in bed. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. And that's another reason why I like to get them in a good spot, the night before. But it's the morning of the show, right? That's kind of my mindset. And then when I wake up, I'm an early riser anyway. I can get a look at them and I'm like, yep, sure enough, that's what we kind of expected. Sometimes I'm surprised, like one of my athletes that just competed in his pro debut in the OCB. I had him right where we needed him the night before, he was a little bit spilled. He shot me pictures the next day. He was flat. But luckily it's not his first show, and this is like my first time with him peaking him in this way, even though we've worked with each other for about a decade. But now we know we can give him more the night before. We need to have him even a little bit more spilled, the night before. But I'm in a good spot usually the next morning. I'm calm. My athlete's calm. That's where we are. What are you guys, kind of looking at the morning of the show, as far as your strategies and your coaching goes?
So usually I have a game plan set up. So I have early in
Exactly.
the week,
Yeah.
I'm requesting, I need the show day schedule. If I can't get it on my own, I'm like, okay, I need you to request it, get that show day schedule because I want to know what time the show's starting, what classes they are, the order of events, so I can estimate about when they might be on stage. And then if I know that time, then I know how to set the meal time, their meal times up. And again, I don't overfeed them. It's more moderate amount of food. And I just make sure that the last meal they consume before going on stage, they have around 2 hours of digestion time. I don't want them to eat too close to the stage because I don't want them looking like they have a food baby or they're feeling bloated or anything like that. So if I get food in them early enough, they can digest it. They're feeling like, okay, it's digested. I feel fine. Um, so I have it mapped out like, okay, this is the times you're eating. When you first wake, everything is strung out on the spreadsheet. Like when you wake up, I need you to get a liter of water in to hydrate. Make sure you bring this, this, and this, and this, sandals, water, extra food. Like I have all that set up, mealtime set up, digestion time enough before stage. I have the pump up process on the sheet as well, what I want them doing as far as getting some salt in, hydration, how to pump up. Um, and if they're doing multi classes, then I'm saying, okay, after this first class, I want you to hydrate, do this, this, and this. So everything is outlined in advance. And usually I'm giving that a couple days in advance. I don't like to set up the meals too early in advance because I don't know how they're peaking until Friday. So I'll set the plan up on Thursday so it gives them peace of mind. Okay, I had this plan in front of me a couple days in advance. If I need to modify it after seeing them on Friday, I'll do it. But chances are 90% of the time, I don't have to modify too much on game day. One, they already have that plan in place. Now, if I start changing a lot on them close to the show, now they got to adjust. That's a stressor. So I just make sure I'm being very strategic and using experience and good theory as far as how this plan is going to work out. But if I have that in place, that just settles people's nerves right away. As soon as they get it, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, thanks. Yep. It's just peace of mind there. I have a plan in place. Now, we all know shows don't run according to plan. So the timings I put on there, like a estimated stage time, 12:30. It might be 12, it might be 1, who knows? So, and I just try to let them know, as long as we get those meals in before you get on stage, a couple hours of it, you're good. Because even if, let's say, the show's delayed by an hour, you're not going to be able to eat again and for that to digest to actually do anything anyways. If you're feeling hungry, eat something small just to take that edge off. But I think a lot of times, especially with first time athletes, there's just too much emphasis on the minutia with show day when it comes to meals and things like we talked about earlier. So it's more so the work leading up to that point is going to probably give you the 90% look, 95% look we're after. So I just think it's again, going back to the beginning, we talk about keeping people's nerves calm. So just having that plan in place, I really emphasize that. But as far as looking at them in the morning, Brad, yeah, I'll have them send a couple pictures, just to kind of see, make sure we're good. If we're good, great. I mean, even if we're flat, I'm like, okay, by the time you get these 2 or 3 meals in you, you're hydrated, you get a pump, you're not going to look flat in the morning. You're going to fill out. And I'd rather have someone a little flat than too full on stage. because they're going to show more sharpness that way versus if they're spilly, it's like, well, you're spilly. Like you're not going to show that
Yeah.
muscularity at all.
I think if they wake up a little bit spilled, it's always easier to clean up a spill in the like I say short term, like over multiple hours, than it is like adding fullness, unless it's a hydration issue. So if they wake up spilled, like I often give them ranges, like you, Jeff. Usually I'm not having them eat more than twice before they get on stage, assuming it's like a standard show. Like you see a lot of people waking up in the middle of the night to eat. It's like
I used to
I've
do
never
that back in the
understood
day,
that.
man.
Yeah, I've
That's
never.
like, why did I do that? I was so stressed doing that.
It's just alarm goes off.
Yeah.
Eating dry chicken. But I think I'll often give ranges, specifically with carbs, usually like fat and protein, or protein's not a huge priority. It's like 20 to 40 grams, whatever. But in fats, pretty moderate. But the carbs, I'll usually give ranges, and it's like, okay, if they wake up and they send me some photos and they're like noticeable, like let's say we were too aggressive and they're a little bit spilled, we'll go on the low end of that range. And if they're looking how I want them to look, then we'll, go in the middle of the range. And if they look a touch flat, it's like, let's get some sugary, kind of fast digesting sources, go on the high end of the range, but like it kind of is what it is to some extent at that point. And I think fluids, like there is that difference, like you guys have talked about with like water and sodium flat versus carb flat, which does take some experience to get to. But in a lot of cases, when they wake up, if they look flat, it's like drink some water and wait. And usually it's not as big of an issue.
Yeah.
And some people lose a lot overnight too. It's like there's some people that barely lose anything, and a lot of people they wake up and they're 5 pounds lighter than they were when they went to bed. So it's in those cases, hydration is pretty important.
And it's funny how water is like, I don't want to say it's the magic fix all. I don't want to say that it's the trump card, but it literally is one of the fix alls for what we need. And there's such a learning experience. Here we go with another story, right? Jeff and I were game day coaching Eric, and he was competing. What year was that, Jeff? When you guys came and stayed here, and he did that
was
show in Reno?
2011. I think it was.
Yeah. So we're looking at over a decade ago, and we got Eric on stage just a little bit spilled, and Eric's physique is so mysterious in that he's one of the only ones I've seen that can spill in one area and be sharp and crisp in another area. But we had him a little bit spilled, and I remember vividly. I mean, at the time I was basically a brand new bodybuilding coach at the level that we were coaching, and Jeff was like, "Okay, you know what? You need to slam. Nothing more to eat. Nothing to eat. We need to slam water." It was in Reno. It was 40 minutes. I think, Jeff, if I remember right, didn't we come back to my house and start giving him coffee? We were brewing him coffee.
So prejudging, he was spilled, and
Yeah,
he was.
This is a good
You
story.
can tell, like he was a little bit deflated. Like his confidence was down because he looked spilled in the morning. So for prejudging, I'm like, hey, you need to pump up, and he was kind of like, I don't. It's not gonna matter. He's kind of like that. He wasn't really pumping up that much. He got on stage, and it's like. It's tooth and nail trying to like have him be competitive because it was him and another guy, and he was losing at prejudging. Like he was definitely not winning. And then
He basically lost prejudging.
and then after that, I'm like, all right, we're not eating nothing. You're just gonna pound water. We're pounding water because water is a natural diuretic. So we start pounding the water, and then nice show. I'm like, you're pumping up. Like, damn it, you're going to pump up this time. And he pumped, like he tightened up a lot. Like we had enough time this is back in the day where it wasn't a one show format. It was prejudging, and hours later, it's the night show. There was plenty of time for him to like start, removing a lot of that water that I was holding. And he tightened up a lot. and he got a really good pump, and he looked drastically different for the night show. And they actually reversed the placing because I know he wasn't winning that show, but they literally like rejudged it in the finals and they flip flopped the placing. He ended up winning his pro card. But yeah, it was definitely a learning thing, like a power of water. So if you're spilled over, and if you have enough time, if you increase your fluid intake and limit your amount of food you're taking in, then yeah, you can definitely tighten up.
And just to add to that story, Jeff knew what was going on. I mean, I had been competing now for the better part of about 8 years. I'd probably done about maybe 10, shows. But remember, Jeff, they had a different judge. They had a different judge at night than they had at prejudging. And I remember it vividly because it was actually a guy that I had competed against several times. That was the night, the finals official. He actually got out of his chair and went up on stage to look at the numbers of the different competitors. He was looking at the numbers, and Jeff and I are sitting in the auditorium, and Jeff goes, "They're switching their placings."
I'm like, they're rejudging this. They're gonna switch by. So Brad and I start like pumping it up, like, let's go,
Yeah,
Eric,
we're
let's go.
yelling at Eric,
Like we're
yeah.
like that's part of game day coaching. Like we're trying to influence the judges.
Yeah.
Like you guys don't see what we're seeing. Like, yeah. So it's like now I can't take credit for this because I'm the one that actually screwed Eric up in the first place. So Alberto is the one that was coaching and peaking him, but Alberto wasn't there. So, Brad and I had our eyes on him the night before, and I'm like, yeah, let's see, you can eat more carbs. Like you're not eating that much. You can probably eat some more carbs to fill you out. Well, next morning I woke up, I'm like, well, that was a little too many carbs. He was really spilled over, and that was my call. So that was my fault. So I'm just thankful that we were able to clean it up. But yeah, like Brad said, this is a learning experience right there.
Yeah, that was, man, I'll never forget that. And ever since then, I very much had this this mindset that if you're a little bit on the spilly side, pounding the water will clean it up in a relatively short period of time. And like you said, Brian, it was hours. Like we literally got off the stage at prejudging. We drove back to my house from Reno, which is a 45, 50-minute drive. We brewed him coffee. He was drinking water. He was pissing like crazy. And then we got to drive back. And then, of course, they had all the other bikini athletes, the figure, the novice bodybuilding. So we're talking hours, just no food and just pound the water. And he was crisp and sharp. He looked like a different bodybuilder.
That's pretty cool.
That night.
Yeah, that's cool.
Or as opposed to like the flip side, if you're flat, you can only digest food so fast, And so, yeah, that was a big learning experience. It's kind of like, I feel like if we get those meals in a little bit early and, basically take advantage of how long it does take to digest, we can kind of speed up things a little bit if we get a little bit on the spilled side by kind of pounding the water. But again, when we're flat, we can only digest so fast.
That's why I think I like to get people like, 2-hour digestion time, at least by the time you get to stage. Because sometimes I've heard some athletes, they eat an hour before. They feel like they eat, they may not look like they're bloated, but they feel bloated. And when you feel that way, you think you look that way. And that can be stressful to an athlete. So if I can get just moderate food, a couple hours of digestion, then by the time they get to stage, they feel flat. Like my stomach feels flat. The confidence level's up.
All right, guys, cool. So it's show day now. And
I thought we were already doing show day.
Well, you kind of rolled in just a little bit sooner than I had hoped, but that's okay.
Okay.
We're still good.
Sorry. Yeah, I got excited, I guess.
Because I remember at the 2024 Muscle Mayhem last year, I really didn't eat very much. I really didn't need to. It was really light. And plus, I was backstage. I was chill. I was kind of joking around and hamming it up with a couple of my athletes that I was coaching on that same day. I really didn't eat a whole lot. Now, I'm not going to say that I didn't eat because I did get up and have a decent-sized breakfast with a fair amount of carbs. Got my coffee in. It was a decent-sized meal. Let's put it that way. But after that, it was just like snacking. It was I think I had some raisins and, like I don't even remember, to be honest with you, but I remember measuring out some raisins, as I was backstage and doing my pump up, and I had my little packets of salt, so I make sure I had my blood pressure up and everything. But if I get them where I want them the night before, I really don't have to feed them a lot the next day because the fullness is already there, and then we're just kind of keeping those levels topped off. And if anything, if I lay out the plan, if I've got their hours out from stage and we've converted that into like their schedule when they're going to be on stage, like Jeff said, we've got the itinerary all there. Um, I just have them eat a little bit on the early side. If it's looking like this time is going to be stressful, you're going to be in the meeting, you got to do this, you got to do that, whatever. Go ahead and eat just a little bit before that stressful time. Get that meal that's scheduled at that time just a little bit on the early side, and then just make sure you're staying on top of your water. But, I'm surprised a lot of times when I get them where I want them the night before, how little we have to feed them the day of just to keep that fullness. Unless, of course, you're like I learned my athlete, that did the OCB Pro show a couple of weekends ago. We probably gotta feed him a little bit more because he's got that Alberto-ish kind of squirrel's metabolism that tends to burn through food and digest just a little bit faster, than most. But, for the most part, like 90% of the people, I don't have to feed them a whole lot the next day, which is good because they're not up there with a full tummy on stage. A lot of times, I just don't want them hungry. I'll give them a Reese's cup or a Snickers bar as they're pumping up, but that's not gonna be there in time. That's just so they have that placebo of energy from the Reese's cup, and they're not hungry and starving on stage. They're not, "Hey, you need a Snickers bar." Well, here's a Snickers bar for you. That's kind of where I am, on show day. So, Jeff, you've kind of already kind of talked about your approach on show day, but Brian, where are you at, kind of on show day?
I mean, I think just to echo what you said, I think usually it's like I said before, those ranges in the first meal. I usually 90 minutes to 2 hours out. They get that other meal in, and I could probably get away with two more regularly, to be honest. And that's something I've thought about. Um, but yeah, usually it's no more than a couple meals, and then before they pump up, it's some salt, some water. If in a lot of people, you could take like those element packets. Those have a decent,
LMNT,
good,
yeah. They
yeah.
love
Those have
those.
a
Yeah.
decent ratio of sodium and potassium. So those can be a more appealing than just downing salt and cheesing it with water for a lot of people. But um, yeah, getting that acute spike in blood pressure so they can facilitate a good pump. Um, but the other thing I tell a lot of them is like, don't pump up too early. I think some people will. It's like you can
That's a good
eat
point.
and get away with eating early, um, but you don't want to just be like pacing around, like almost paranoid that you're going to miss and end up pumping up 3 times. Because you see that. I mean, I've done that. Like the first show I ever did, I think I pumped up a total of 3 times and finally made it out there. But each time it was a little bit less. So, it's you're just kind of fatigued at that point. So I think if the show's running on time, try to have them, get some sodium in them maybe 30 minutes before they pump up. Maybe,
So you,
8 to 12 ounces of water, something at least to, get the sodium down so they're not really thirsty. But I also don't want them having to go pee on stage, or feeling like they have to go. So limiting water a little bit, not because of like peaking, but just so they're not on
Don't have
stage
that
with a full.
bloated tummy and
Yeah,
peeing. Yeah.
yeah. So, but and then pumping up, I think, for most people, usually I'm not going to have it's nice to have bands if they can bring them, if they have access to them, but um you never know what you're going to get at a venue in terms of equipment availability and
yeah, you should bring
there could be
bands.
like one set of dumbbells for the entire class. It's like that's not ideal. So yeah, like doing things like, some good ones that I often do is like a good set of bands. You can do obviously push-ups without bands. Push-ups, you can do some rows, some like pullovers, triceps, biceps, lateral delts, but rarely am I having people pump up their lower body unless it's like clearly like a developmental weakness where it's like, okay, you're going to look small if you don't have a pump here. But if somebody's shredded, it's unusual that pumping up their lower body is going to enhance definition. Usually it's the opposite, I think. They kind of get that pooling and it's kind of smooths out.
It obscures definition. And plus it fatigues your legs and you have to be out there holding your legs.
Which you're getting hammered on stage. You're getting hammered, yeah.
So, just doing, a circuit, 15 plus reps of each, maybe a couple times through. I mean, it doesn't need to take more than 10, 12 minutes. And then if they do finish early, it's like it's kind of like the snack to hold them over. It's like, okay, if you want to do a set of push-ups, or if there's a part that, is lagging that you want to kind of emphasize a little bit before you get on stage, do another set of lateral raises or push-ups, whatever. But the goal is to not have them pump up more than once, and usually not be just pacing around. Like if you can put your feet up, like I've gotten people ask me before, like what am I supposed to put my feet up and like relax backstage? Like I see everybody has their feet elevated. It's like, no, you don't have to do that, but you want to relax, like put yourself in a position to just chill and not be checking the expediters and, walking back and forth and pumping up in the between. And, you don't want to be antsy. And then I think, I could be getting ahead of your itinerary here, Brad. Like once they,
I got a couple points before Brad starts jumping back in there.
Okay.
I'm putting my name on the list in line because I know Brad's going to just jump into it.
I'll call
you guys.
I even have it on my notepad.
Well.
I wrote it down.
It's right here.
But I think one of the I tell people this a lot, Jeff. The best piece of advice I've gotten about stage presence is just from you is like don't go 100%. And I think you see a lot of first-time competitors that are. It's like the harder I flex, the more definition's going to show, and that's the difference between like isometrically tensing a muscle at 80% and 100. Like there's no visible difference, but there's a significant difference in fatigue in doing so. And so just be poised. If you're in the back and you're not, on the line, like you don't have to be going 100%, like just head up front relaxed, but it's not like you can't breathe or do anything like that. You could just hold it lightly. I mean, they say judges are judging that. Like, I don't know how much I buy into that personally. Like, I don't think you should just stand there with your stomach out.
If you have an experienced head judge, then they know, like, especially if you're up there for a while and if they're calling you out in like, top 5, those types of things. If you're in the back, then the experienced judge knows like, okay, we're not judging that group right now. We're judging this front group.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, hold your best 50% front relaxed if you're not on the line. And then, just don't forget to breathe. And I think just a lot of people go too hard. They're sweating their ass off. Their tan's streaking everywhere. They're shaking. It's like if you just let off the gas a little bit, you can prevent a lot of that. And you just look more polished, more professional looking.
Yeah. So going back a little bit, Brad, I'll promise I'll let you talk after this, Brad.
Not important. I'm about done anyway. So
as far as like the pumping up process and all that, I like how like I ensure, especially if I'm there at a show, like last Saturday, I had my athlete make sure that they get oiled up first. Like, hey, let's go to the tanning people. Let's make sure you're getting that taken care of first. Because that's one thing off of your checklist you don't have to worry about. Because what you don't want to do is you get a great pump. Now you got to go stand in line and get oil. And now you're losing your pump because you're standing in line getting oil. So it's like I always make sure that athletes get oil first, get your tan touched up, whatever. And then let's get that pump in there. The pump, like you said, Brian, it's like a couple rotations through, like usually like push-ups, rows, laterals, curls. Like that's enough to get your upper body pumped up. Don't go like a bat out of hell. It's not a workout. you're just trying to get a pump. So sometimes you see people backstage, they're actually working out. You're like, man, now they got to go out there and try to hit some poses. So and if they're posing at 100%, like you said, they're really going to start shaking. So like, take your time. You don't have to rush through that. You can do 10 push-ups, rest a little bit. Maybe it's 5-10 seconds, chill out. Okay, do your rows, chill out, do laterals, chill out, so on. That's a circuit. If you're pumped up, ready to go, and the show's delayed, then you can do okay, now instead of doing 10 or 15, I'm going to go through that circuit and do 5. Because at that point, that's all it's going to take to keep the pump. You just don't want to be way, way early on it though, because then you will flatten out. That was one thing I wanted to kind of throw out there. And then the other thing, and I don't know if you guys have thought about this or not, this is what I need to do a better job with my athletes, is that whatever plan you set up for your athlete, and this probably be good for coaches listening in and athletes who are listening in, and coaches give you a plan, stick to your plan. Because you get to a show, especially newcomers, it's like they see another athlete doing something like, oh, should I be doing that? And then all of a sudden they're deviating. Oh, this guy's cutting water. Oh, I'm going to cut water too. Because so you start doing things you probably shouldn't be because you're stressing in the moment. So just like we tell you on social media, don't look at all these guys and look at what they're doing. Focus on yourself and just stick to your plan. Because whether the plan works or not, when you're done with the show, because you stuck to it, you're going to know what worked and what didn't work. So if you have another show lined up, then you can assess that and make improvements for the next time around. But if you're in the moment, oh, Brian's over there eating a bunch of Reese's peanut butter cups. Should I be eating a Reese's peanut butter cup? Or Brad's dousing honey all over his rice cake. Do I need to have honey? Like you just think there's some magic in these things, and there really is no magic to any of this. So it's important. Like that's what I want to stress that. Like same thing with if I'm on game day, I'm like, we're sticking to exactly what we laid out.
There's a lot of like folklore about food
100%.
sources too. And I don't think I've talked to Eric directly about this, but Berto was once telling me, maybe you guys were at this show, he got off stage and one of the judges said like he'd look good, but to have a little bit more honey.
Yeah, honey for the veins. It was honey for the veins.
Yeah,
I remember it. Yes.
That was judge's feedback. You need
that
honey
was
for the veins.
judge's feedback. Yes. Honey for the veins.
And
yeah.
I think that if I could be wrong here, but even Brad knows, like they said that because one, they need to be leaner, one.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even for the veins. It's just like this person, even if they did honey, they aren't going to see the veins because they just need to be leaner.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kind of brings me to my final point, but I'm going to piggyback, Jeff, on your story there. Cause I remember vividly my first show, I had my plan all laid out. I had it all laid out. And I showed up there and I was soaking wet, like 157 pounds, but I was absolutely shredded. And of course, all the guys are lining up, but they're in their clothes. They all look huge compared to me with my cheekbones sticking out, and my ribs just popping out of my skin. They look huge. And I got really defeated. I got literally like, why am I even here? These guys are all going to crush me. Why am I dieting? I'm just going to eat whatever I want. I've been suffering for 6 months. I'm just going to eat. Screw it. I'm not going to win anyway. And I went to the bathroom and I calmed myself down and I said, you know what, Brad? No, don't do that. Finish what you started. Stick to your plan that you laid out, that your coach kind of helped you put together, and finish what you started. It's hours. It's 6 hours until you get to go have pizza, strawberry milk, and Krispy Kreme donuts.
Strawberry milk.
Finish
Strawberry
what you started.
milk. Who the fuck has that?
I was craving strawberry quick really bad, Brian.
Strawberry milk.
At that time, they had just come out with the pre-made strawberry quick in the bottle, ready to drink. I was craving it hard.
I've never heard such a thing.
No more Reese's peanut butter cup.
Strawberry milk.
Strawberry milk. I was craving that hard.
With a straw.
But the point is like, I stuck to my plan and I kicked ass at that show. I absolutely
Did you win?
kicked ass. No, I won my class. I was in the novice.
Okay.
But I should have went into the open because the guys were saying you would have won the open if you were in the open. They were telling me that they had never seen that kind of conditioning before. And man, I was so thankful that I did not deviate from my plan and just go in with that defeated approach.
Yeah,
You
I've
know?
had that experience too. Like
Yeah.
you're backstage, everybody got their baggy sweats on. You're like you're looking to see who's who. You start getting in your own head, and then your
Yep.
confidence level kind of drops
Yep.
down. That's why you should focus on yourself. Like, because I've done many NPC shows, local level, of course, and it's like keep doing the weigh-ins. Like everybody's in their baggy clothes, but yet their shoulders are just like ginormous. You're just
Yeah.
like, how am I going to compete against these guys?
Yep.
And we go to do the weigh-ins. I take my clothes off. Everybody's like, damn, you're shredded. And then you realize like some of these guys that are huge are pretty soft.
They're fat. Yeah. That's what
Well,
I
I'm trying to be
experienced.
nice, right? I said soft.
No,
So
no,
yeah.
I've seen them where they're downright fat, you know?
So
Yeah.
I think
It looked like they dieted.
on show day, again, that's like being a coach on show day when you're especially in person, you're trying to calm people's nerves. Is like, look, just keep doing what we've been doing, like you said, Brad, and just focus and display your art. And that's what gives me peace of mind as an athlete is, again, I don't give the judges that much power to define my success. If I did everything I was supposed to do up to that point, then I kind of know, okay, doesn't matter win or lose. Like I did everything I could and I can live with the result. I can live with winning because obviously I put the work in and I happen to be better on that day. But if I lose, it's like, okay, someone's just better than me and I can handle that. But if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, then yeah, that's hard to take,
Yep.
because there's regrets.
Yep. So that brings me to kind of my final point to kind of close this podcast out. This sport is not like any other sport in that, okay, when we're done with the football game on Saturday, you know what? We need to work on this. We need to work on this running back's starting formation. He, needs to get off faster and get the ball faster. We need to work on this play and get this executed better in order to be better and compete in the next game, the next weekend. This game ain't like that. You're not going to compete. You're not going to improve yourself unless, of course, you got to diet more and you got to get leaner, or maybe you got to peak a little bit better. Maybe your posing can be a little bit better. But when it comes to, especially with the judges' feedback, where it says you need to improve your delts, you ain't going to get that improvement by the next show. You're going to have to go back to the drawing board. You're going to have to live the lifestyle for the next 2 or 3 years and work the process of getting size on your delts. So I just want to kind of introduce that. You guys can kind of put the finishing touches on that. But this is not a sport where we just go back to the drawing board, we fix this, and it's ready to go the next time that we compete. It's talk about the timeline too. It's not going to be a year thing. It's going to be a multi-year process that you're going to have to commit to make these improvements that either you need to make, your coach recommends that you need to make, and much less what the judges want to see on stage.
I think the question as coaches, for us coaches, is how do we handle judges? Like, because I'm sure you guys have had athletes like right away. This is what the judges' feedback was.
Mm-hmm.
How do we handle that feedback? Like, how much stock do we put into that feedback and things like that? Like, I know for me personally, I kind of know, like, I know my athletes. Like, I've been doing this forever, so I know what symmetry looks like. I know what muscularity looks like. I know what posing presentation looks like. I'm pretty confident in my abilities there, as far as giving an athlete an accurate assessment. Judges' feedback, I think I look at it two ways. Like, one, like, I don't put a ton of stock into it, but at the same time, I'll listen to it. And if it makes sense to me, I'm like, okay, there's some validity to that. Okay, let's see if we can work on that. Now, the thing, like I mentioned earlier, is that let's not focus on the negative feedback now. Like, let's actually enjoy what you just accomplished. Let's look at the positive things that was actually accomplished. Granted, you may not have gotten the placing that you were hoping for, but that doesn't mean you're a failure. Because chances are, if you've done everything right leading up to that show, you peak well, you pose pretty well, that's your best ever physique. That should be celebrated. So it frustrates me sometimes when that negative feedback, it's almost like shitting on their parade. Like enjoy it first. Then after you've had some time to reflect, because you will have different perspectives the next day, a week later, a month later, a year later, you'll have your perspective on it will change. just give it enough time to really sit in. And then it's like, okay, now let's focus on what we need to do to improve as bodybuilders. So I try to like instill that into my athletes. Like I just had 4 athletes compete this weekend. 2 of them sent me judges feedback. I didn't really like respond to it. I said, oh, I just basically congratulated them, said the positives. And I said, we'll work on like next check-in, we'll think about, maybe talking about stuff. But right now we're not going to talk about it. Cause it's just, to me, it doesn't serve anything in that moment.
It doesn't. Not at all.
I mean,
it's not like they can go into the.
It doesn't matter what class you're in, right? What's get bigger, get leaner, pose better. You're going to hear that every single show you do.
Exactly. And I think with a lot of like big shows, I mean, judges aren't like vigorously taking notes on each competitor. Like their priority is placing them.
Make sure they get placings right.
And so half the time, like I get feedback, I heard back from the judges, I emailed them, and a couple weeks later they get feedback. And it's like, it's clear they, in some cases, don't know who they're actually talking to. It's just like this boilerplate, like, get bigger and leaner. It's like, no shit, like that's
exactly my point. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, even as the athlete, like as the coach, we know what you need to work on, and very high likelihood you do as well. I think usually we're our own harshest critics. So I agree though, Jeff. It's not something that I visit until
especially
the following check-in, at least.
Game day coaching, because that's part of our job as coaches, is to handle the emotions afterwards, whether it's like a victory or a loss. It's like, and each athlete's going to have their own emotions, and those emotions are valid. Like, I don't want to just squat like they're feeling bad about it. Like, oh no, you should be all cheery. And like it's okay to feel that way. But I also try to point out the positives, because and I do this myself sometimes. Like, you just focus on, if you don't get the outcome you want, especially, you're just focusing on the negative or what you can do better. You're not really focusing on what you just, like, the positives. I remember in 2002 prep, the whole prep, I didn't cheat on my diet once. I only missed 1 cardio session because I went to a basketball game. I went to a Kings game. They lost, but that's another story for another day. Should have did my cardio. But anyways, I was spot on the whole way through, and I was never satisfied. At the end of the day, I'd be like, nah, I could have worked harder, could have did more. Got on stage, lost by a point, didn't win my pro card. Poor me, got depressed. So everything was just very dark. And it took a while for me to get out of that, and it's to realize, like, damn, that was like a very shredded physique. Probably the most shredded I've ever been. Best physique I ever put on stage. Probably the hardest prep I ever did as far as like getting after it. But I didn't celebrate it at all. And still to this day, I don't think of that prep in a positive way at all. Yeah. But so it's like I never want my athletes to experience that. Like, to make it so dark just because they got a second place by 1 point. Like, oh, you're a failure. Like that. I mean, it's far from it.
Agreed. Yeah. I agree. When it comes to judges' feedback, the judges know what they want to see, but they have no idea how to get it. They really don't, Sometimes even the most gifted judges, they were born with great delts, they'd competed with, very well for many, many times. They have no idea how they got those delts, not, kind of taken into consideration until the later years. They realize that God just gave them those delts. They have no idea how to attain those delts or, kind of what have you. But yeah, gents, I mean, I'm good on my end. My itinerary is all checked off. Do you guys have anything else that you wanted to add to it?
I'll get you a strawberry milk after this season, Brad.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll be waiting for you backstage at Worlds. I'll get it for you.
We'll put a strawberry milk with a medal on it that says first place for Brad. It gets a strawberry milk.
All right, gents. Thank you very much for joining me. That was a fun conversation.